Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Infinite Improvement Podcast with myself, Coach Christo, and of course, Coach Andres. Today, we're going to be talking about, like we said last week, what made us special as players. So we'll each tell our little story and go through what we think made us special as players. Before I hop right into my story, I just want to say, I think it's very, very important for players to be, I think self-awareness is super, super important, for people, but also, definitely as athletes as well, like knowing the player you are, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing what sets you apart, those things, it's almost invaluable to kind of know yourself. And I think who was it who said the knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. I think maybe Greek philosopher.
I don't know who said it, but
might have been Socrates or something. But yeah, I think that is really, really true. How are you going to set up your training? How are you going to, try to become a better athlete if you don't know who you are right now? And I think it's something that a lot of players don't really have a grasp of. They don't really know who they are as a player. I think asking yourself this question, what makes you special, is a good starting point. It's not like the end of the conversation that you have with yourself about yourself. But I think it's a good starting point because it can be something that, fills you with a lot of confidence, makes you feel good about yourself. What makes you special. So we'll hop right into my story. So when I was playing for, an academy in Greece, IL FC, and I was playing for the under 18s. Nearer towards the end of the season, I got the chance to play a couple games with the under 21s. I was one of the younger players on the under 18s. So I will have been 15 or 16 at this time. I was playing and I got to play up with the under 21s. So the under 21s is basically the reserve team for the first team. You're allowed to have 3 players over the age of 21. So I was playing with mostly 19, 20, and some even 23, 24-year-olds. So I had a couple training sessions, obviously, before I got the chance to go play in any games. And of course, I didn't expect to get many minutes, if any minutes, of playing time. But I was still, thinking it was going to be a really, really great experience. I liked the coach a lot, actually more than the coach I had on my U18s. So I thought it was going to be a really great experience. It was an away game, so I got to go to Athens, spend a night in a nice hotel, hang out with the team. I have a couple, teammates of mine from the under 18s. So, nice group of players. And one of the players who played in my position, I was a center defensive midfielder at the time, who was on the under 21s, did something a little bit stupid the night before the game. And the next morning, before we left the hotel, we were getting our breakfast and the coach called me over to his table, had me sit down. And although obviously the conversation was in Greek, so I can't translate it perfectly, but basically it was along these lines. Christo, you're very small, you're very weak, and you're not the best technical player on this team or the best technical player who'll be on the field in this game today. But you are a very smart player, and that's why you'll be starting today. All right. I don't want you to try to be anything you're not. I don't want you to, try to, play out of your mind or anything. I want you to trust yourself, trust the decisions that you'll make, trust that they're the right ones, and just follow through on them. So although it started off very negative and I was like, what the heck are you talking about? I was I forget if I was 15 or 16. Let's say 16. But like I was, and I was a slight kid. Like I wasn't like super built or anything. I wasn't very tall. But I do believe that that was what made me special as a player, was my brain, my intelligence, my like game IQ, I guess. So maybe fitting that I've turned into a coach. But
Yeah.
basically, to be a little bit more specific, I think that something that I did very, very well as a player was anticipate what other people were going to do. So I've played in a lot of different positions for like a long time. Like not like I was just like always moving around, but like I played as a center back from when I was like 12 or 13, you know, for a couple of years until I was playing as a center defensive mid and also sometimes as a center back. And then eventually I made a transition later on in my career to play a more of an attacking role. But I think that like I can remember like bits of like my best plays from every position. I remember in that game specifically, there was a moment where I wasn't going to win, a 50-50 ball by going in at the same time as someone else. I was going to have to get there before the other person if I wanted to win a 50-50 ball. And I remember this moment when one of the center mids was receiving a pass, I believe from a center back, and I managed to just step in front of him, intercept the ball, start a nice counterattack. We didn't score or anything, but it was like one of the plays that stands out to me from that specific game. And there's similar moments when I was playing as a center back. It's not like I was like making incredible tackles all the time, but I think just like stepping in front of an attacker or, anticipating that they were going to get the ball and moving towards them to not give them space to turn, little things like that. And it's kind of the same thing when I moved into more of an attacking role. I think that it was very interesting for me because I know like, I feel like I kept that as I like recreated myself into more of an attacking player. But I could see like the mistakes coming from the from the defenders. I could anticipate like, oh, this is going to be a bad touch, or this attacker is out of position. What run can I make to create space for my team or whatever it was? I like thinking like a lot of my highlights are me capitalizing on mistakes. And sometimes when I've posted them, people are like, oh my God, what was that goalkeeper doing? What was that center back doing? But I think like almost every goal is the result of a mistake at some point. And some mistakes are more obvious than others. And some mistakes are really, really subtle. Like you can see someone being out of position, but sometimes it's literally a step out of position is the mistake that can lead to a goal. Sometimes, the center back literally just gives you the ball. So it's a big difference between those things. But I think that thing that set me apart as a player was my my decision making, and more specifically, my ability to anticipate what other people were going to do on the field, including probably my teammates as well. But most specifically, like the people that I was playing against, I knew he was going to try to take me on in a 1v1. And that lets me know like what I have to do to stop that. This defender, I can set, he's going to get pulled out of position. So I'm looking at that space, knowing that's going to open up, and I'm ready to make my run there. So always, thinking kind of one step ahead. And I think it's interesting because a lot of players want to be something that they aren't. And I already mentioned this a little bit, but like I was never a player who was going to take on, defender after defender after defender. But what I was going to do is drop into some space, turn, pick up the ball and run at defenders. And if I had to take them on at the end, okay. But a lot of the time it was just to pull them out of position to play my teammates in or something. And I think that's something that a lot of players struggle with, is wanting to be a player that they're not. If you are, like incredible at one thing, know that and play to your strengths. If you're very slow, you're never going to be, a winger who's, running up and down the touchline. If you're very, I don't know, if you're not a good dribbler, you can improve your dribbling, but at the same time, what if you're like the most incredible passer? So I think playing to your strengths is something that's really important, and something that I think I did pretty well with the help of my coaches, helping me to understand the player that I was. I think that's something that I did well.
That's an interesting point, because I what I'm gonna say might seem like it has nothing to do, but the other day I was reading the Bible, um, and there's this book called Leviticus, and it's very heavy on rules, and so it's a book that normally everybody tries to stay away because it's like it's boring and you don't want. And so there's almost the entire book is like, you shall not, you shall not, you shall not, and it's all these, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. And then as I'm reading, I'm like, God, why can't you just tell us what to do? That would be so much easier. But as I kept reading it and I started to like think of my personal experiences, like I started to realize that the do nots get you closer to what you should do. And so sometimes identifying what you're actually not good at, like you're saying, will help you actually unveil what is that uniqueness or that differentiator. And it takes patience, because we want to go straight to the what am I or what differentiates me. But it might actually be a more what's the word I'm looking for? The journey will be enriched if you understand these do nots, because in those moments you understand who outside of you may have these do nots. Because in soccer, at the end of the day, is a team sport, and so my do nots, somebody else may have them, but they also have do nots, and maybe I have theirs, and so it gives you more perspective as a team. But yeah, I think you shouldn't be intimidated by understanding what you're not good at. We're not supposed to be good at everything, and if you try to be good at everything, you're gonna be average at everything.
Yeah, or less than average,
or less than average on everything. What At what point? First question would be like, you gave an example of a game. Was that the turning point for you to identify this is what differentiates me? Did you know that before the coach exposed that, or was it later on as you became a coach that you realized that, oh, this was what differentiated me?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say, like, do not the do nots. Like, there's going to be a lot more things that you're bad at than things that you're good at, right? Like, and obviously, like, a lot of that is like, you can get good at almost anything. So like, but at the same time, we are all different. We all have, our strengths, and our weaknesses. Like, as soon as you start playing, you're a different player than the player you're playing against. And you have to know that, and not try to be that player, like be the best version of you. That's something that we've said before on this podcast.
Yeah.
Don't try to be anyone else. I think that it's, people want there to be like the moment that you realize something. I don't think realizations happen like that very often. So like, I probably had an idea of the player that I was before that conversation. And that conversation obviously like pushes me in a certain direction. Right. But it's not like from that moment on, I knew the player that I was. And I was like that day I played very well, because I was reminded of what I needed to do in that game to be successful as an individual. We actually lost the game, which, was disappointing. And, but I like, the coach like spoke to me afterwards and like was very pleased with my performance, because I did what I needed to do in that game. For the most part, it's not like I didn't make any mistakes, but I did definitely play a very good game. But it's not like every game from there on out was good, right? Like, always moments where you kind of you play badly, and sometimes like you lose yourself a little bit, you know, at different moments in your career. So I don't think it was like that moment is one of the moments that helped me realize it. But, you know, there were other coaches down the line saying, oh, Christo, you know, you're really good at this. Let's play to your strengths. Let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, there were other moments where I had a really good game and I was looking back and I was like, why was I successful there? And I wasn't successful in this other game. Was I trying too hard to do things that I don't really need to do? Was I trying to be a player that I'm not? So I think like there were obviously coaches before that, you know, when I was like 12 or 14, telling me, you know, that this was my strength, you know, or like, you know, playing me in a certain position, maybe that I wasn't very happy with, and saying like, this is why this is your strength. It might have not have been like anticipation exactly, but like, you know, my intelligence for a certain position at that point. And so I think like, it's not like picking a specific moment that changes everything. It's more like the gradual realization, and different moments kind of push you in a certain direction. But, you know, you're not going to go from here to here overnight. It's, you know, it goes slowly, and the process is, you know, backwards and forwards. You take 2 steps towards yourself, you take a step away, you take a couple steps back, you know, forward, a couple steps back.
Yeah. And do you feel that so for example, the coach came to you and said you're not the best at this and this, in the process of realizing, okay, it's not that I'm horrible at those, but like these are just not my strengths, did you feel at any point that it helped you be less tough on yourself when you proved that you weren't the best at those, but you knew that this is my sweet spot? Or did you still try to improve these things that you would take it very personal when you had a bad touch, or when you had some of these deficits? So just trying to understand how you took it, how you worked around it, knowing your sweet spot, or starting to learn what your sweet spot is. Did it help you be less tough on yourself when you're maybe weaker attributes or weaker parts of your game or came to expression in a game?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think like a big thing is like, you know, I was a lot younger than the other players, so he wasn't telling me anything that I didn't know, you know, like, he would like, and I think that sometimes you have to hear someone else say something to like really like be like, okay, yeah, you're right. Now, like, I have to figure out dealing with this. Like, so you problem solve rather than like just getting really frustrated or something, right? So like, he's telling me the way that I'm going to work around being a little bit or a lot smaller, being a lot weaker, you know, being like, technically, like, it's not like he said like, you know, your touch is horrible, it's going to let you down every time. Yeah. And like, compared to other kid, like the average kid my age, I was probably like quite athletic, right? But like, in the context that you're in, you know, you need to work with that. Like, someone like, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, great players, and like someone like, you know, Messi. I know PSG are out of the Champions League. Messi's a horrible player now, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, watching him play, I've actually watched a couple of his games recently, and he's a very different player, and not, you know, you can say he's a worse player, but he's playing in a very different way. He's not taking on defenders all the time anymore. But he's, you know, maybe he's not that player who's going to dribble past your whole team and score anymore. I think, you know, most people would say he's not, but that doesn't mean that, you know, he can't recreate himself into being like a more deep lying playmaker in a way that could be very, very effective. Right. So like, knowing, it's, in the context that you're in, what are your strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, if I go to the park and I play pickup, maybe I can dribble by everyone and score, you know, an outrageous goal or something. If I play against, you know, my niece, maybe I can, you know, not lose a single 1v1. You know, but like, if in the context that I was in, is a good level. So it's not like him telling me that I'm smaller or weaker or not the best technical player is going to like destroy me, as long
Yeah.
as he gives me that thing to hold on to, that way to kind of problem solve. I
Yeah.
think like giving one of the most important things coaches do is like empower players to like figure it out themselves. And he wasn't saying like in every situation you have to do this. He was saying, Christo, today I want you to play intelligently. That's what you're going to do anyway, but just hear it from me so that I can, so that you know that you're doing the right thing, and to trust yourself and just to try to make the right decisions and play quickly, and play play kind of like naturally, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
I think that's giving me that way around my weaknesses was the thing that made it didn't seem like it started out, I was like, what are you saying to me? But like, it wasn't, by the end of the conversation, I didn't feel frustrated. I didn't feel like he thought I was a bad player. On the contrary,
Yeah.
I thought he really believed in me. So it was a good feeling.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you said that was really good was sometimes we limit ourselves to identifying our strength in one season and trying to replicate that in all of the seasons of our life, as a player, as a coach, whatever it may be, and identifying that like it could be dictated by your environment, by your age. Like Messi can probably not work or dribble as much as he could 5 years
Cristiano
before.
Ronaldo was like a winger taking on players in 1v1s every game. He hasn't been that for a while. And, that if he's
Yeah.
successful as he is now, that's fine.
Yeah. And one of the problems is like, am I lagging a little bit? Or is
No,
it,
I think you're okay.
I'm good. Um, yeah, I think sometimes we feel that like our peak or our best moments are behind us. And it should never be that way, regardless of what stage you are in. And I think that will help you try to seek new ways um, to hit new peaks. And so, yeah, maybe your intelligence was that, and then now your experience maybe adds something different. And maybe because of your experience, you can play center back, and your last few years might be center back or wherever it may be. But identifying that if you dwell on, oh, I was really good at this back then, and oh, the good old days, then you're gonna limit your today. And I think a lot of players, it starts with like when we look at professionals and we are judging Messi and Ronaldo for not doing these other things. But like, okay, take any human being at the age that they are at now, Ronaldo and Messi, and put them in that spectrum of being the best or two of the best in the world, and adjusting to everybody seeing them play for the past 20 years, and everybody building systems to stop them, and they're still thriving. So they're still doing something unbelievable. If Messi decided to continue to dribble, I wonder if he'd still be playing. He'd either be injured or he'd no longer be effective. So I think, and we talked about this in one of our podcasts, like the power of recreation is what's going to keep your career relevant. And I think the sport and life requires you to be relevant. Like what was good yesterday, you just and also like find the transferable stuff. Like what from yesterday can almost spark the today. But one, don't get caught up in how good you were yesterday. And don't be intimidated by your cannots or your weaknesses. And coaches, like, definitely, like you said something so good, like we empower. Like if you don't teach anybody anything but you empower a group of players, they're gonna reach a higher potential, which is it's what we're there to do.
Yeah, I mean, like it's crazy. Like I know this will be like much more pronounced in a couple of years, but like, seeing my daughter like try to like, grab stuff or like do this, or like watching her like, little eyes like looking around at the world and stuff like, but also like having worked with so many, young players and even like really young players, kids are smart. Kids figure stuff out for themselves every day.
Yep.
You don't, I think a lot of coaches talk too much rather than like, not enough. And that's something that I've definitely, worked on, because obviously I like to talk. But like, players figure things out, people figure things out.
Yeah.
You just need to help, you just need to give them the tools to do that. And, if you're in a position of power, let them know that you trust them to figure it out. Don't tell someone, how to do something. Tell them what to do and see if they can figure it out for themselves.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that actually happened to me this past week. On Monday after the session, like I got in the car and I didn't feel like we enjoyed the session. I didn't feel like the players enjoyed the session. I didn't feel like I enjoyed the session. Talking about the 06 team, and it felt like it was the coach and the players, like we didn't sync, and I was really aggravated at the session, at the players, and at myself. And this is what I love to do. Why am I leaving not happy on my ride home? And I just kept, and we had a scrimmage the next day, and I just kept. I tried my best to like, where is it my fault? Where is it their fault? Where is it a collective, or not fault, but where is the
Yeah.
issue that's making it happen? And and I think we all like try to take our personal role and try to impose what we bring. And so as the coach, I feel like, oh, I got to impose a style of play. And then the players, they've been together. They were together before I came, most of them. And so like they won the entire last season without me being there in a different league. And so for them, that's the style that has worked. And then you have a bunch of individuals who their style has worked for them in high school and throughout all of their youth. So it's a million different styles that are coming together. And on top of that, you have like the players that one of them wants to be like Neymar, one of them wants to be like Xavi, one of them wants to be, and then the coaches we have, like one of them wants to be like Pep, one of them wants to be like Klopp, one of them wants to be like Xavi. And so the only thing that I could think of before a scrimmage was like, hey guys, like we'll give each other, like I'll try to give you guys principles which will help us create an identity, but I need to do a better job of not imposing a certain style, because it's our first time together. And I think it's almost like if you think of, I don't know, Picasso, and he was trying to get a drawing, like I'm sure he had a lot of really average sketches until he started getting to these really this identifying his style and who he was and how he painted. So the style is gonna, like, why don't we stop trying to be a cheap replica of Barcelona or a cheap replica of Neymar or a cheap replica of Pep, and why can't we create this new unique style of Avi Villa 2006 with these players? And that's tough because there's gonna be nights like Monday where we all leave like, damn,
Yeah.
this sucked. This was a horrible sketch. But again, just reminding
You
ourselves
need
that, like,
those. You
yeah,
need those.
you need
Right?
those, you need
Yeah.
those. Because that's one of those don'ts. Like, Andres, don't get so angry when it doesn't look the way you want it to look. Be a little bit more patient with the players, and if you guys don't leave happy, you defeated the purpose of a game. you know. But yeah, I think it's intimidating to not see what we imagine right now and the style right now, or the player wants to play like Messi and I don't look like Messi right now. Like, well, first of all, I don't know that you should be trying to look like Messi. Look like whoever you are. So yeah, I think you talk about exposing yourself, and in this world where like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook have so many things that we can replicate or attempt to
Yeah.
do it like, it's a tough balance because we lose who what we can add to the sport as a player, as a coach. And with the different team, maybe I could do a different style. And so like not limiting ourselves as coaches either. That like I come to implement a style, and we're gonna be known for this style. Is it even actually your style? Did you just get it from watching soccer? So
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like my like best ideas for videos or for like questions to ask players or like stuff for this podcast, like they don't happen on social media, even though like it's constantly like every post or video that I watch could be like another idea. The best ideas come to me when I'm driving my car, listening to music, like literally,
wow,
because they
yeah,
just appear in my brain. Like obviously they're coming from somewhere. I'm not saying like I'm a genius and all these ideas are like just coming from me. They're coming from like a conversation I had, or maybe even like a video I watched or something, but it's not in that moment. Like I need the time to kind of like create that myself
yeah,
in my mind, or like make it my own.
yeah.
And that's when they like the ideas kind of like just flow.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, just
I agree.
something
We
to
get,
think
we
about.
get. I think you've said it before. We get in our own way.
Yeah. All right, ready to transition over to Andre's story.
Yo, remind me of the question.
What makes you special as a player? I know, I feel like
As
it's
a,
always we go into like a bunch of different areas, but always good.
what made me special as a player? You didn't identify one. Like you didn't. I don't have to pick one. I can pick.
No, no.
Okay, okay, good. So one thing, the game that comes to mind actually is it was a regular season game, UMass Lowell against Brown University. And it was I think we were that season. Uh, we went like 14 or 15 games. I can't remember without losing. And I think that was maybe the seventh or eighth. And so every day, like before the games, we would have our team talk, and like we'll put like 7-0-1 uh looks better. I mean, looks worse than 8-0-0. And so we were always like, is this gonna be the one? Like, and then like the university had never had such a a good season results wise, and so there was always this thing as like, are they on a lucky streak? Are they just on a wave? What's going on? And so I remember that game. It was like, hey guys, let's just do the same thing that we've been doing, and trust in our style and our ability, and go out there and play. And so we had a very like, you could point out our style. Like we would try to have the ball as much as possible, and by the end of the game, we will always be up, and we stuck to the style. And in that season, I was moved to wing back in a 3-5-2, which was tough for me because I enjoy being in the middle more. And so we were down at half 1-0. And we had been playing our way, and it felt like we were in control of the game, but we were not in control of the score. and so and so like
Always
it's
funny when that happens.
yeah. So like, are you actually in control of the game if you're not winning? And
Yeah,
so
Italy
at
was in
half,
control of the game yesterday.
yeah, and then they're not in the World Cup. um, and then at half, I remember like we were in the team talking. We're like we normally score more than 2 goals, or at least 2 goals per game. Like if we just commit and keep playing the same way, uh, it's gonna come. And if it doesn't, then it's just one out of the so many games. And so it even started to break our pre-game talk that like the 8 was more important. It's like, no, now it's just the identity. And that will probably get us to the 8 more likely. So we got into the second half, and then I felt limited a lot of the season because I was wider and I couldn't help as much in the middle. And so I had to, throughout most of the beginnings, just adjust to like, how can I bring these characteristics of a midfielder out wide, which was mainly why I was put out there, because if we want to put the best 11, then we're going to have to put people maybe in positions that they don't feel normal in. And so they played the ball out wide, and then we were in their half, and then I did this really nice ball around the entire back line, right into our forward who was coming in, and then he one touch put it in the back of the net. And so that was like the first air that like, oh, okay, it's under control. But for me, it was like, wow, I was a midfielder out here, and it was actually a very, very good pass. And I think one of the things that differentiated me was my passing ability, my ability to imagine something and be able to execute it. But not so much um, alone, because when you're a good passer, you have to make sure that it connects the weight, the length of is your the player you're passing to a fast player? Is he good in the air? Is he good on the ground? Does he have a good touch? And so I think I was good at creating those and then putting the ball where I imagined that it was going to happen. So the first thing was my ability to pass. I think if you want to speak technically, my passing ability differentiated me as a player. And then the game went on, and it was 1-1. And then when there was I think there was like 7 or 8 minutes left, our midfielder, one of our defensive midfielder, went down on an injury. And then as soon as he went down, I was like, I'm gonna go back in the middle. and so whatever the substitution was, I ended up in the middle of the field. And then there was either 3 or 4 minutes left, and then there was like it was a ball, and some guy was coming out, and then I went and I slide tackled him, and then I put it right over the defense. It was a different forward. But knowing his characteristics, I gave him the ball, knowing how he would fix that and get a good chance. And then so he brought it down really well. Actually, Albert, who we talked about not too long
Yeah.
ago, and then he put it down, and then he scored, and then 2-1. And so again, it showed my ability to pass. And I think sometimes we think that passing is the actual connection of the ball and where it lands, but passing has a lot to do with, can you set up the player that's going to have the ball next in the best possibility for whatever they are going to do next. And so that's one of the things that I think differentiated me as a player, my imagination with the pass, and to adjust my pass to the receptor. I think that's been transferable when you remove the technical to do it with kids and youth players. Be able to set them up as well as possible for them to execute whatever they want to do next. And then the other thing, so the first one is my passing ability, and then the second one would be my adjustability. Um, I think I have a way to, wherever you put me, I'm gonna find a way to understand the spot on the field as a player, understand my options, understand the danger, the risk factors, and work from my strengths. So from a midfielder, bring these anywhere on the field, and help the team out. So I think adaptability would be the second thing that I think I I execute at a high level. And again, that's another transferable thing. I think when COVID hit, I recreated my way of coaching, and I created a curriculum, and we went Infinite Ballers online, and it was a space to continue to coach and interact with players. So again, my adaptability to help the player or the person around me or in my team get to their next part of their life or their game as well as possible. So yeah, I think those are the two things which interesting as you make me think about with all the questions that you ask, which are really good. It's neat to see that they're actually all unique qualities that transfer to anything that I do, and
Yeah.
they are the things that have made me stand out in one moment as a player. And as a player, it was on the field and running to the right places, passing the ball, and as a coach or with pandemics or with whatever it may be, having to adjust. So yeah, I think those are the two things. We ended up 8-0 after that game, which was good. And yeah, I think that's I had to, although I did really well those 7 minutes left in the game. The next game I was put back a wide again.
Hmm.
So although I wanted to be somewhere, I had to go back to go and adapt again.
Yeah.
and I had to do it, and it was one of the best seasons that the university had. And I will give some credit to players like me, and I wasn't the only one who had to adapt, but the our ability to adapt, and it was a team that was very good passing the ball. So again, those two things were characteristics that Andres brings to the table. So that's it. That's my
Yeah.
story. Those are my two
Yeah.
things: passion and
Yeah.
adaptability.
Yeah. So like, yeah. And I like how you made the passing into like, it wasn't just about passing. It's like setting other people up for success and then also being adaptable. So obviously, you were, maybe you weren't the one, in the spotlight, like, Abra making the bicycle kick and being on ESPN top 5. But, you need like there are always these kind of like silent players in a team who maybe don't get the attention all the time, but are just like so incredibly important. And also, like, I think it's a big lesson for younger players to learn, because like, you're always in your mind, or at least like I was always like, in my mind thinking about like, the player that I was going to be was always the star player, right? Like that,
Yeah.
you want to be the one, in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
headlines, you want to be the one scoring goals, or,
Yeah.
with these incredible plays, but that's not, most players go through like a lot of, most like being adaptable is just like so important, because if you play at a high level, you're going to play for coach after coach after coach with different teammates, different teams, different like goals,
Yeah.
different leagues, all of these things. You're going to have to adapt to all of that. And, and at the end of the day, like, you will be successful by
Yeah.
setting the team up for success however you can do it best.
Yeah.
And being adaptable is just like such a huge
Yeah.
huge part of that. And a lot of young players, I find, like, can be very rigid. Like, I like changing a young player's position can be like, ooh,
Yeah.
like if you went to Luke right now and said like, Luke, you're gonna be
Say center back.
I almost said, I was gonna say fullback or something, but like taking that winger and making them into a fullback, or taking that, because I know I had a little bit of a weird journey myself, but most of the time it's players who play more of an attacking role being forced back, or more of a central role like you being forced wide. That's something that happened to me early on, is like in the academy, I always played central. So I was a center back, a center defensive mid. That was it pretty much. And then when I played men's, obviously, like, I wasn't going to play as a center back, as a 17-year-old playing against, 25 and 30-year-olds. I wasn't going to, I maybe going to play like defensive mid, but I didn't play that there much either. I was playing right back or left back. And that's like a journey that a lot of people, go through. It doesn't mean you won't end up back in the middle at some point. But if you're not, like, we talked about like finding out, this whole podcast started about like finding out who you are. And you won't find out who you are without finding out what you're bad at, what you're not. Yeah. What you're bad at. And there's going to be a lot more things that you're bad at. Like, and if you don't find out, you won't figure out who you are.
One of the most, I think, liberating things is, as I coach, or when I played, or was identifying that as a strength, adaptability, and it helps you just walk into any space confident, because even if you go into an interview, even outside of the sport, is like and they normally ask you, what are your strengths, and so many times we go and I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and so like, it doesn't matter what you can do. What does the company need, or what does the entity need, and then start from there. And then it's almost like you can disarm them, because if you're adaptable, then I can do anything you you got over there. So you almost flip the interview, and you're like, okay, my strength is adaptability. I have a set of skills. What does your company need? Because I can adjust these skills into that. And so how do we find a way that you have them explain to you what is needed, and then now you start to pick your strengths, and okay, I can adapt this one this way. As opposed to feeling like you're in the Turkish market selling your skill set.
Yeah.
And and it helps you go into all these situations thinking a little bit less about yourself. Because I think, like you were saying earlier, it's we are our own, we get in the way of ourselves. And so trying to figure out like, well, how is my strength going to be make this team better? How is my strength going to make this company better? Or what does the company need? What does this team lack? And then adjust to that. And I think if you're able to flip it in that manner, you're going to find yourself on the starting 11 significantly more. If you're a player, you're going to find yourself on a callback from an interview. You're going to find yourself creating better teams, because if you go in as a coach and you know that you have to adapt to 22 players as opposed to 22 players adapt to you, your team is going to be much better. So yeah, so seek adaptability, I would think, or find how your strengths can be adaptable to all of your spaces. I think could be a big finding in yourself.
It's interesting. You mentioned like think less of yourself sometimes, and obviously, like, I'm the confidence guy. I want people to believe in themselves, but like you also need to know yourself to actually believe in yourself.
Yep.
A little bit of a tangent, but it was interesting to me because I just found this out.
Were you reading were you reading the Bible too?
No. If you're taking a shot from outside of the box, where would you aim on the goal?
From outside of the box, I mean, it depends on a lot of things.
Would you, in general, let's say you're like it can be more than one place. Yeah. Where wouldn't you aim?
Yeah. Where wouldn't I aim? Where the goalie is, or where the defender is, or outside of the goal?
Okay, yeah. So most players would say like they wouldn't aim for the middle of the goal, right? Because that's probably where the goalie is going to be.
Yeah.
You know this. Actually, it's the right decision is to aim for the goalie every time.
Oh.
So there's this concept that I recently it's called like dispersion. So basically it's the idea that athletes are almost never as good as they think they are. So let's say like when you're playing golf, you're aiming, for, whatever you're aiming for. Most professional golfers don't aim where they want the ball to go, because if they aim where they want the ball to go, you're going to miss most of the time. Right. So like you want to set yourself up to miss as well as possible. So if you're taking a shot, and I thought that was really interesting because I applied it to shooting from outside the box. If you aim at the goalie every time, you're going to miss almost every time, and it's not going to go to the middle of the goal. If you aim for the corner, it's probably going to miss most of the time the corner, right? It'll either go more towards the middle of the goal or out of the goal. If you aim at the middle of the goal, you won't hit that middle of the goal most of the time. You'll hit the sides most of the time. So actually, did
you see Gareth Bale's goal yesterday?
It messed with my head so much. I was just like, this is crazy. No, I didn't. I only had time to watch the Italy highlights because that was the game I was. But yeah, it was
interesting.
It was crazy that like a lot of professional golfers like don't aim where they want the ball to go. They aim so that if they miss, it ends up in the best spot it can possibly end up. So, just a little thing to think about. Like you have to know yourself. You have to know how good you are. But like, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because like, let's say like you aim for the middle. Let's say like a third of the time you miss this way, a third of the time you miss that way, and a third of the time you hit the middle. Like that means 2 shots are going to the sides, one's going in the middle. If you aim here, 1 shot's going there, one's going right at the keeper, and one's missing.
One's going wide.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
it was an interesting concept. I'm not sure if it applies like directly, but like this idea of not trying to be something that you're not thinking that you're better than you are, like
Yeah.
accepting, the kind
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
what the
Yeah. Yeah.
truth, right? The reality, and dealing with that. All right, with that little,
You got me like imagining all these drills, finishing drills, like people just. I'm gonna put a goalie in the middle and just shoot at. um,
yeah.
Interesting. That's
Yeah, it
interesting.
is. I'm definitely gonna experiment with it. I think it's time for three key takeaways. I'll give one right off the bat is, don't try to be something that you're not. We're all different. We all have our strengths, and we all have probably many more weaknesses than strengths. I'd say if someone asks you for your strength and you're listing off like 10, 20 things, like they're not strengths anymore, right? Like most of us have like certain things, you were able to narrow it down to two. I only had one thing. Like obviously I could come up with more if I needed to, so could you. But like if you try to be good at everything, you're not going to be good at anything. So know what you're not. And from there you can kind of build what you are.
Hmm, it's good. I would go with adjustability. And I think working off from what you said, if that's step one, if we want to put them in order, once you understand some of your strengths, can you uh can you adjust them or
Like
adapt them?
find
Adapt
ways for those strengths to be
to
strengths,
work.
not in just this specific. So like you're passing, you're setting other people up for success. You were able to take that into, as a coach, you're still
Yep.
setting people up for success, even if
Yep.
it's not by passing them the ball, it's by,
Yep.
putting them on the field. Right.
Yep. Yep. So it's I think your strengths are transferable to pretty much all the crafts that you do. So yeah, so turning your strengths into adaptable tools.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way.
Yeah. Do you have a third one?
Um, I I took note of what you said. Like I really like the way it sounded is miss as much as possible. Oh no, miss as well as possible. That was a good takeaway. But I don't know if we unpacked it enough in this episode. Um,
We'll bring it up again after I've done some experimenting with it. I need to go play
uh,
golf now. I've never been
I
I've
hate
never
golf.
been much of a golfer. I don't think I could.
I can't do
Only
it.
only mini golf for me.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
I think like off of that, like just like realizing you had to realize what you're not. You have to like figure out your strengths and make those strengths like transferable to other situations. And then like, I think like the last step of that is accepting who you are, right? Like accepting that you're not better than who you are. You're not worse than you are. You are who you are. Accept that and, work within that. Like obviously we can all become better at everything as we, as you work harder, as you take more touches, as you play more, you're going to get better. But like, I think realizing who you are in like each moment, as you live, as you play, I think it can be very powerful. Like if it might sound like, restrictive, like you're putting yourself in a box, but really it's not. It's just about being, kind of self-aware, and grow, and that sets you up for success later, right? Like the things you have to improve on, and
and I mean, as long as you're breathing, you're going to be evolving. So once you accept yourself, also don't feel the need to stick to that, because you will probably be asked to do something different in different spheres, and you're actually going to evolve from that where you are to something else. So don't see your strengths as something fixed, as opposed to strength is proof that there's things that I'm good at, and that means I can be good at some other things as well. As opposed to like when you go into a situation where there's absolutely no passing to
Yeah.
be done with the ball, then you freak out, you know. Yeah. So I say yeah. Accept
Yeah.
the last one could be accept yourself with open mindedness to evolve.
Yeah. Accept yourself. Don't limit yourself. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening to episode 10 of the Infinite Improvement Podcast. We'll be back next week. Next week's topic is going to be advice that we got from someone outside of sport. And we're able to transfer that into obviously our life, but then also, back into sport ourselves in some way. So this one's going to be.
That one might go for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good one. I have a gem for that one. All right. So thanks for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, we are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. And we'll catch you again next week. Peace.
All right. See you guys.